For all the adventures DuckTales brings us on, a lot of them don't really focus on the core character who brings this entire ensemble cast together, Scrooge McDuck himself. It's true that we love the entire cast. Huey, Dewey, Louie, Webby, Mrs. Beakley, Launchpad, Duckworth, Gyro, all of those characters are essential to what makes DuckTales DuckTales. Despite that, it's rare we get to see Scrooge have his own adventure, and that makes this episode a rare treat. This is the Outlaw Scrooge McDuck. One of the great things about DuckTales is how the characters really hold the show together. Engaging, interesting characters like Scrooge McDuck, who are fascinating in their own right for being charming and greedy and complex, despite being weird duck characters. But one of the things that makes Scrooge so appealing is he's kind of like the Captain America of the Disney Duck cartoon world. He's a man that's been around for so long, he comes from a completely different time period, owed to the fact that a lot of his origin story takes place during the Gold Rush. Multiple gold rushes. And this episode, as well as the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains, is one of the few instances that the new DuckTales series really dives back into his old past as a prospector. And for me, that's an idea that's really exciting. We see a lot of Scrooge McDuck as an old man who already won his fortune, but we rarely see him as the young man who was tougher than the toughies and smarter than the smarties, and actually earned that fortune. This episode is a rare glimpse into that past. A chance to appreciate the decades of history built up for this character, from Carl Barks to Dawn Rosa and beyond. And it's also a great chance to see a fan favorite character, a villain and lover, Goldie O'Gilt.
Nope! Gross, old people romance, blech.
We weren't old back then.
Goldie's always kind of a rare treat because she gets to highlight this aspect of Scrooge, of him wanting to find love and companionship and start his own family, but being at odds with his sense of morality and also his determination to be a success. He has an affinity for Goldie. He definitely loves and cares about her, but he doesn't want to sacrifice those feelings for the success he feels he needs to achieve. It's always kind of delightful to see their complex relationship in action, and we've seen more of it on screen in the new DuckTales 2017 than we have in almost any other format besides their interactions in the old comics. That said, this episode is about a lot more than Goldie and Scrooge's rivalry, and their relationship isn't the only throwback to Disney Comics lore either. In fact, this episode happens to be the first animated appearance of a long-time Scrooge McDuck villain that's not that well known in the States. John D. Rockerduck. For me, Rockerduck's a lot like Feathery, one of those characters that's popular in Italy and overseas duck comics, but just never really hit the mainstream in America, and so as such, I really don't know a lot about this character, except for the obvious that his name is a play off of the American capitalist Rockefeller. And in this episode, he's playing a foil to Scrooge. He's the opposite. But there's a difference here. In a lot of those classic comics, Rockerduck is just like Scrooge, a multi-million or multi-billionaire who is running a business in contrast to Scrooge's morals or methods or competing with him in some field of business. And here, it's a much bigger contrast because Scrooge is still a poor, penniless sourdough trying to make his way in life and his wealth on the Klondike or out in the Gold Rush trying to just get started, where Rockerduck is already a successful, cutthroat businessman. And the difference between them here is one of morality. Scrooge, who wants to earn through grit and outsmarting and hard work, and Rockerduck, who doesn't mind taking shortcuts or cheating someone to expand his wealth or be rich. And in a lot of the old comics, if you go back and read them, sometimes Scrooge was a little dirty and underhanded in his business dealings too. He was also cutthroat. He would also use espionage and not necessarily always be the cleanest businessman. But one of the things that makes DuckTales special and interesting, apart from those old Duck comics, is Scrooge tries to be portrayed as the more moral businessman. And that's partially what this episode is about. Scrooge fighting against a billionaire, or a millionaire probably at this point, making his wealth through unfair means, and Scrooge fighting back in the form of justice. Because Scrooge McDuck has no problem with people being wealthy or rich, but they should earn their living honestly. Either way, it's a fun reversal that allows Scrooge to serve as the underdog in this story, the poor man fighting the rich man, something usually reserved for Donald in a lot of Scrooge McDuck stories. Pay attention to the background of one of the opening shots, however, and you'll see there's more to this story than just a simple flashback. That's right, that's Gyro Gearloose in the background, riding in the 1987 DuckTales Time Tub. If you're not familiar with that from the original DuckTales series, the Time Tub is one of a couple doesn't quite work right time machines that Gyro makes. And he uses it in a few episodes, one Gyro-centric episode where he goes back in time to the medieval times and so forth, but this is the first time we've actually seen it in the new series, though it did appear on Gyro's list of inventions that turned evil. Not sure how a time machine turns evil. Either way, the Time Tub is more than just an Easter egg. Somehow, Gyro's actually found himself back in the Old West, and has interjected himself, through accidental time travel it seems, into Scrooge's flashback. It's a twist I didn't see coming when I saw Gyro's Time Tub in the background, but one I really like, because this isn't Scrooge misremembering things. This implies that this was the history Scrooge always remembered, and he just never figured out that Gyro that he hired when he got way older was this weird fella he met way back in the past. And it's not like Gyro's presence is inconsequential to the plot either. Gyro's actions and inventions are a huge focal point in the resolution of this plot. And if you're a big time travel nerd like me, it makes you start wondering about how time travel works in DuckTales. Is this all predetermined fate? Was it always like this? How did this heist that happens in this episode go if Gyro wasn't there? It's got me wondering, how did this story get resolved originally without time travel? And did Scrooge still get himself a spiffy top hat? I hope so. Either way, Scrooge, Goldie, and Gyro, as well as an ancestor of Fenton Crackshell Crabera, all need to work together to stop Rockerduck from scamming the town. This mostly revolves around a giant gold nugget in the center that Goldie and Scrooge both find at the same time, which Rockerduck claims he already owns. In the end, that all leads to the ultimate Western trope, which only means one thing: a train heist. On a whole, it's the perfect formula that has a little bit of everything you could possibly want. It's a Scrooge and Goldie adventure. It's something that dives back into Scrooge's past. It's still tied to modern era DuckTales, so it's not just a flashback episode. It has Gyro, it has narration with Louie, so it still feels in place with the continuity that we've been watching this whole time. And on top of that, it's easily one of the most fun and funny episodes of Season 2 so far. Well, at least to me. And it might just be because I'm a big Back to the Future Part 3 fan. Okay, maybe that's stretching a little bit. Back to the Future Part 3 was a Western, and it did have a train heist, and it did involve time travel, but this isn't exactly a parody of it part for part. But it does have some really fun lines that reference the Back to the Future series, as well as a few scenes that I think are definite visual references. Not everything about this episode was perfect to me, though. I'm happy to have Lin-Manuel Miranda in any episode of DuckTales, but the old school Gizmo Duck shtick is just a little strange to me. It totally works, but what? Either way, this episode is a super fun watch, and is easily already one of my favorite standalone episodes and character studies of Scrooge McDuck. I'm a total sucker for anything that shows Scrooge's ingenuity and hard work and past, and really gives us time to live with that character. And this episode has that in abundance. And it's a nice break, because although DuckTales is definitely a show about family, it's nice to just spend some time with one of my favorite characters for a while. That's it for my quick review of this episode, however. We'll have more trying to keep up with the rest of these May episodes as they come out in rapid succession. So thanks for watching as always. Let me know what you thought about this episode, Robo, Retro, Gizmo Duck, and the Old West, and any Back to the Future references that you might have caught that I might not have in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and take it easy, Internet.